Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for March 13th, the day of Fateful Prediction. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Fateful Prediction. We have us. Can you predict what it could be? Well, it's an image of boom. It's a hand encircled by, what's that, a ring, I suppose. All right, does that speak to the day of Fateful Prediction? Well, if you predicted as much, I reckon it does. That said, visual representational image aside, I just like folks to kind of know what's going on in a page in front of me, or off camera if you like. But a lot of the times, this thing has no real bearing on what's going on in the reading. Sometimes we might make a connotation, but oftentimes not. That said, what's important around these here parts is not the visual representational image. It's that it's March 13th, and hence, it's somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is March 13th, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? That's what's important around these here parts. That said, maybe this video finds you late and your birthday's already come and gone. Well, if that's the case, I hope you had a happy birthday, all right? That said, there's other times folks like to join us here randomly, or more ideally to celebrate. And so if that's the case, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself, all right? Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake. But if it's something you've been here before for, well, you can just jump ahead in the chapters if it's something you're not interested in hearing again. That said, I'll be here rolling dice for a very, much more important reason, and that would be for synchronicity's sake, all right? Now, rolled us a 5 and a 2 for a 7. Now, what's synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, as I hear it told, the universe, the higher powers that be, will oftentimes put things in our path to help us manifest our goals or realize our aspirations. But a lot of times we get the blinders on to what's going on around us. We're very singular of focus, or lasered on things we want to get accomplished, all right? So that said, we may not be apt to see the things that come across our path, all right? Or lend them much credence, if you like, if you do see them. So this is a little bit of an exercise to help you drop the blinders and start seeing the things the universe is putting out there for you. But we need some kind of mutually agreed upon sign that we can't help but recognize if this is something we want to try out. That's right, your daily numbers, all right? That said, you don't have to go to the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice either way. So you can ascribe directional values to number sets as well as time limits with which to go in those directions. So you're essentially letting the universe take the wheel and drive, all right? Let it show you what it wants to show you, okay? That said, pick out a place near and dear to your heart to go explore, or maybe someplace you've never been, and then set off. But like I said, get the blinders off, because you never know, the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. You might start seeing things outside your numbers, okay? Take the visual representational image, all right? Maybe you start seeing hands everywhere, all right? Be it at the crosswalk, you keep running into the hands instead of the don't walk sign, when maybe you're used to seeing the don't walk sign. Or maybe you pass by a psychic shop and they got a really giant hand in the window, all right? The neon sign, if you like. Or perhaps it's just a bus bench and you're seeing somebody holding up the hand, all right? So I would take note of such things. Now, it doesn't have to be that specifically. It can be anything. That's why you got to be eagle-eyed and keep your mind on the prize, just seeing what's in your environment. That said, maybe at the end of your first directional value time limit, hey, you're not seeing much of anything, just the everyday goings-on. Well, just take things in stride. At least you're out there getting your steps in. Maybe take a step back, see what you see, and maybe you notice something small, all right? And as I often like to say, maybe you find yourself on 7th Street, all right, or whatever your number is. It's lining up there. Maybe 52nd Avenue there. Who's to say, all right? I would take that as a sign you're on the right path. Maybe no sooner than you go to bend down to, I don't know, roll your dice again. Maybe the old number a 7 bus rolls up. And maybe on the side of that is the theme of the day, all right? I mean, again, somebody holding up their hand, all right? There you go, another sign that maybe you should get on the bus and ride. And maybe as you're thinking things over, should I get on the bus? You waited too long. It's gone, all right? Hey, you know what? Maybe just roll your dice to see how long to follow it for, all right? That's the kind of thing that can happen here. Maybe sometimes you notice an anomaly, something that stands out in a crowd. like somebody wearing a hot pink shirt in a sea of otherwise blasé colors. You know what? You can use those individuals as a white rabbit of sorts and not chase them down, but follow them if you like, all right? But give them a little bit of a buffer. You don't want to necessarily spook them. That said, maybe they're wearing a hockey jersey and it just so happens to have the number of the dice roll that you rolled, all right? I would take such things as a sign that the universe is intending on you to do as much. That said, maybe somebody catches you stalking them, all right? That's why it's advisable to keep your distance. That said, just be open, transparent about what you're doing. Let them see your dice, show them this video. They're apt to say that's absolutely crazy. I'm sure you're apt to agree with them, but they might say what's even crazier. It's their birthday too. And they're like, you know what? This is exactly what I needed in my life, to shake things up. Not just because it's my birthday, because things is getting boring perhaps, all right? So you know what? I would say welcome them along on the journey, because the more people that you bring in to focus on the same thing, well, as I hear told, you're apt to beget greater results, all right? So maybe you start stacking up even more synchronicities or coincidences, if you like. More hands, or whatever the particular theme of the day is, more of your daily numbers, all right? So get on out there, see, taste, touch, smell, intuit, even just a little bit of that kind of magic. I think you understand why I brought it up. All right, I think you get the idea. Let's get on with the birthday read. That's why you're here. All right, your month is March, your day is the 13th, your sign is 21 to 23 degrees Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. All right, March 13th, the day of Fateful Prediction. Those born on March 13 lead fateful lives, which in retrospect could be said to have turned around a few chance happenings. Most individuals born on this day strongly believe in predetermined occurrences, moreover, and are prone to making predictions about the world and the lives of others. And there is something of a oracular, there is something of the oracular, about much of what March 13th people say. They often utter their analyses of the world and its problems with a kind of knowing finality. And the more intellectual of March 13 people are attracted to philosophy, spiritual teachings, theoretical speculations, and science or analytical systems. And they tend to worship the human mind and what it is capable of producing, yet reserve an even higher awe for the universe, of which it is only a small part. And those born on this day are capable of surviving what would be overwhelming catastrophe for most other individuals, be they physical, economic, or psychological disasters. Particularly true for men born on this day, it says in parentheticals. But because of their fatalism, March 13th people of both sexes are able to accept the blows of fate without complaint and go on to lead highly creative and productive lives. In many cases, before these events occur, March 13th people are not fully aware of their talents or fortitude. And thus, such trying circumstances can serve as a sort of baptism or rite of passage, which not only furthers their growth, but also instills pride and grit that can be called upon in future difficulties. They may even come to better understand themselves and their life's path. Personal evolution and growth is something that is built into the basic fabric of the March 13 personality, so that almost all people born on this day progress in an evolutionary fashion without much choice in the matter. However, many get sidetracked along the way due to an attraction to the esoteric and metaphysical energies, which they can't fully handle. And such individuals tread on dangerous ground when they pretend to master or even to understand matters beyond them at the present moment. But even this serves as an important part in their development, no matter how great their failures. One of their wishes is to be an inspiration to others and to find those who can benefit from what they have to say. And in general, March 13 people should resist making predictive statements or even thinking certain thoughts about individuals close to them, since they thereby may unknowingly influence the course of future events. So-called self-fulfilling prophecies can be, in their case, nothing more than a strong set of expectations. However, not only dreams, but also nightmares have a way of coming true if dwelled upon too much. All right, very highly specific, albeit fascinating birthday breakdown today, I would say. They were pretty hyper-focused on one particular theme, and then they fleshed it out from there. Not altogether all too uncommon since back to the Capricorn period, when otherwise the rest of the book did a pretty decent job of rounding things out to say, talking about your relationships as parents, as lovers, romantics, also sometimes siblings, or sometimes they even give advice to parents of people born on the day. Here, that wasn't really present, and I only make mention of as much because I like folks to kind of know what the book does and in which ways. And so it's just kind of following a little bit of a theme there for you in two different ways there. Both the theme of the day and the theme of the writing, if you like. That said, I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary on the things we just went over, so we can provide some more context as we go on with the read, and also make connotations with maybe the period at large, things that have presented before, and also things I just found interesting. So let's dive into it, all right? March 13th, the day of Fateful Prediction. You're said to live fateful lives, all right? And you may strongly believe in predetermined happenings, but also have a penchant for making predictions, which is interesting to me as I can see it as both supportive and contrary to a belief in fate. All right, sure, you can try guessing what the predetermined outcome will be, but it seems like a static or a wasteful activity if you believe what is predetermined to happen. All right, but if you don't believe in fate or lend much credence to it, then it's a very active, dynamic prospect. So perhaps proactive dreaming versus otherwise reductive, perhaps. I don't know. Hopefully that makes some sense. That seemed to be the profound thought I had about as much. Either way, you're said to utter such prognostications with a kind of knowing finality, which may in no small part lend to psychic powers said to belong to this period at large, and many of the people that are born within it. The more intellectually focused folks may worship the mind and science, but still be in absolute wonder of the universe. So even in those otherwise grounded, even those who are otherwise grounded in logic still have an eye turned toward the greater metaphysic. So that's rather interesting in my mind. They have a little bit of a balance, it sounds like. Some of these other days, that's something that's very hard fought for, or lacking, and so they recommend they cultivate as much. That said, the reading goes on to claim that you may be quite apt at surviving catastrophes that others would be otherwise broken by. And due to your fatalism, you do so without complaint. All right, you're not letting it thwart your creative ends, which is a very rare quality for the period, I would say. Though some have been said to view such things as worthwhile challenges to be overcome also. So it's kind of hit and miss. It just depends on how that dynamic is realized with the personality. But it's been a bit of a through line theme with these challenges that people either rise to or endure. But this baptism to help you further realize your purpose for such things, another rarity, I would say. Those makes a certain kind of character building element. Mentioned a few other days here. So it's in line with that. It's just realized in a different way, apparently. Though this idea of discovering a deeper self-awareness has also begun to present more recently, which maybe isn't too surprising how it also extends to getting distracted by metaphysical matters, though this mention of essentially testing your fate in pretending or thinking that you've mastered such things, that's pretty interesting in my mind. A bit novel here. And I guess if we're getting into a novel idea, any extension therein would also be novel. But I also like this mention of wishing to be an inspiration to others. I wouldn't say that's altogether all too novel for this period, as many people, that especially at the beginning of Pisces, they really dedicate themselves to a cause. A little bit of a through line all the way back from Capricorn through Aquarius, people dedicating themselves to a higher cause. Or maybe just a cause in general for Capricorn folks. They kind of just let the personality or the private life go away altogether. But here for you, I would say it's a little bit more individualized. We're kind of coming out of that dedication to other people. But that said, what's interesting about that is you still want to be an inspiration to others, I think is what I'm trying to say. So you're still getting a little bit of that higher cause to others baked into the proposition there. But for you, it's also laid out as a direct concern, which is interesting. Now, whether you act on that, I don't know. That's up to you. And the reading doesn't necessarily say. So that's also interesting. For you, it's a thought, not necessarily an action in those respects. So that said, like I said, pretty fascinating birthday breakdown, pretty hyper-focused on the psychic elements. And, you know, some folks that are just coming to this stuff new, no real mind for the astrology and the new age ideas. You know, by and large, the book doesn't really concern such matters. Yeah, the metaphysics kind of comes in there, but psychic phenomena, not too much. All right, so, but it has been presenting this particular period writ large. So they are pretty picky choosy when it comes to such things. So I wouldn't necessarily poo-poo it for that reason specifically. That said, that's been what I had to say about your birthday breakdown. Let's move on to your numbers and your planets. All right, a little more of the astrology and numerology, if you like. Okay, those born on the 13th of the month are ruled by the number 4, as 1 plus 3 equals 4. And by the planet Uranus, or Uranus, depending upon how you like to say it, which is both erratic and explosive. And the number 4 traditionally represents rebellion, idiosyncratic beliefs, and a desire to change the rules. And March 13 people are, of course, born under the sign of Pisces and thus ruled by Neptune as well. And the resulting Uranus-Neptune connection tends to break down the more static and resistant elements of their personalities. And thus those born on this day are forced to change by major events, whether they like it or not. And although the number 13 is considered unlucky by many people, it is rather a potent number which carries the responsibility of using its power wisely or running the risk of self-destruction. All right, this was a highly personalized numbers and planets. Why do I say that? Because sometimes it's not, all right? So oftentimes they might button it with a little specific thing there to make it a little bit more personalized, but otherwise it's a copy-paste job. Here I would say they had 2 planets that are very interesting in and of themselves, but when they come into mix or the co-rulership, it presents a very interesting dynamic, so they kind of had to make it personalized. But they still went further than that, I would say. In any event, I'm probably burning down everything I have to say in the commentary, so let's dive back into the notes here. The number 4 in the planet Uranus, which is a planet both said to be erratic and explosive of nature, but also said to electrify or shake up the dynamics of any given planet that it's coupled to, representing rebellion, idiosyncratic natures, and a desire to change the rules and not doing things in a straightforward fashion. Interestingly, I didn't find this to be an overly Uranus-influenced day, quite honestly. There wasn't a lot of the typical shake-ups that tend to arise or get mentioned. I would say that there was some defying convention in there for sure, to say like still having a mind for the metaphysical, even if you're more rationally minded. That's a little bit of a shake-up. Or the ideas of fate further bolstering your resolve, but rather straightforward as far as a Uranus day goes. Sometimes it really shakes up the dynamic, turns it on its head. Not so much here. But with regard to Neptune being the planet of visions, dreams, and lending to a mind for higher ideals and also romanticism, I would say any kind of mind for reason would be considered an upset to that end. All right, so it's totally against the typical Neptune dynamic where folks are said to kind of have their head up in the clouds, if you like, ethereal matters more so than more grounded, earthy, logical matters. to include deriving motivation from challenge. All right, so when others are often broken by said challenges. Just mind you use your power wisely or risk self-destruction. All right, that's been coming up a little bit here too. I think we segued out of it here the past few days, but here again, it's still in the mix. Any event, that's what I had to say about your numbers and planets. Hopefully you took something of value from it outside of just what the book rather had to say. Before we move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but hey, it's here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us to start dealing out the cards. And a lot of times you can make connotations with what the reading had to say and see where things match up in those respects. Sometimes not, but we'll just have to see. So let's dive into it here. The most misunderstood card in the tarot is the 13th card of the major arcana, Death, which very rarely is to be taken literally, but signifies a letting go of the past in order to grow beyond limitations. Metamorphically, it says. Both this card and the number 4 suggest that March 13th people must guard against discouragement, disillusion, pessimism, and melancholy. All right. Very sparse tarot card entry by at least 2 or 3 sentences sometimes. That said, Death is a once a month card, all right, that usually says precious little. Having said that, a representation of letting go of the past to move beyond limitations is the takeaway, with a suggestion to guard yourself against discouragement, disillusion, pessimism, and melancholy, all right? Which, from what was said in the breakdown, you may not be bothered by if you tend to believe and accept what happens as part of your destiny, all right? But some folks get more out of when the cards keep turning up against them, or maybe go up against their predictions. So if you are someone who you know, lends a lot of credence to their predictions, that stuff might not sit too well with you, I would say. That said, some may think having such a viewpoint is a boilerplate illusion, all right, so that you would otherwise do well to abandon. All told, it's up to you to decide what constitutes limitation and whether and or how to grow beyond it. So I think it's a pretty interesting card. It says quite precious little, like I said there in the notes, so it's really hard to kind of see how we can make it apply. But I think if we start thinking about predictions and how they're apt to change our lives, if you like, depending upon what you believe with the fate and everything, then it might start to appeal to us a little bit more. That said, if you're someone who rises to the challenge of, fate and the like, it's hard to think that you would be going up against discouragement, disillusion, and pessimism and melancholy. But like I said, if those cards keep turning up against you, those predictions you keep making stop, they're never coming true, I could see how it might get thrown into the mix eventually. So don't get discouraged, I think, is the thing. It's maybe a good time to maybe abandon your illusions just for a little while, just to try it out and see what happens then. Live a little more loosey-goosey, if you like. I don't know. Maybe that's what your destiny is, but who's to say? In any event, that's what I'd say about your tarot. I know there wasn't much to take value. Excuse me. No, there wasn't much to take value from because precious little was said, but hopefully you enjoyed yourselves. Took something from it. In any event, that's been your tarot. Let's move on to your health. All right. Those born on March 13 tend to be accident-prone, and they may pay particular attention to their lower extremities and take especially good care of their feet and toes. And they must pay particular attention, rather, not they may. Though you might, who's to say. Moderate regular physical exercise is important in keeping the physical apparatus of these philosophical and concept-oriented individuals in good working order. Particularly recommended are a variety of non-competitive activities such as yoga, calisthenics, long walks in natural surroundings, swimming and tai chi, or dancing. The March 13 diet should be strictly controlled and feature a high percentage of whole grains, nuts, fruits, and, of course, fresh vegetables. And in certain cases, or in certain special cases rather, high protein intake can be important for a period of time. nutritionist, rather, homeopath, or alternative medicinal specialist may be helpful. All right, here I was fumbling my words left and right. All right, see if I can make up for it here in the notes, if you like. All right, here we go. You're said to be accident prone. Something that's actually come up quite a bit in this period, pretty regularly too, as it turns out. Care for your feet and toes is mentioned, and that's probably because the feet and toes are a Pisces body area. But if you're apt for accidents and stuff, I'm guessing those stub toes is coming up quite a bit for you. Losing the nails, getting the purple swelling there. So maybe mind where you're setting things down there, positioning the furniture if you like. That said, also they didn't mention the dairy. All right, that's often come up that they should avoid dairy. All right, people born in this period. And I say that because the other body area for Pisces folks is the lymphatic system, and dairy products are said to not do well with the mucus there. So mindful of that. Kind of interesting they drilled down so much with the diet, they didn't bring up the dairy. But what's interesting too is that's a very grounded, earthy kind of diet. So I think that that quite a bit speaks to the planets that you're ruled by, the otherwise high in the clouds, the ethereal type planets. So trying to ground you a bit. That's pretty part and parcel for a Neptune day. I don't know if Uranus necessarily shakes that up. Who's to say? But they really drill down on it. It hasn't been that laser of focus for foods in quite some time. And if they do, it's kind of peppered in there, not usual. Also, the very specific exercise day. I would say that's also more of a grounding type kind of exercises there. But also, it's still a little bit lofty or head in the clouds, if you like. There's a lot of Neptune Day folks that get stuff that's kind of low-key, help them develop grace and such. And that comes to kind of present here with you. And oftentimes, these planetary dynamics seem to be what dictates that. So again, I was saying Uranus doesn't seem to be shaking things up too much today. I would say that's another case to be made for that as well. Usually the Neptune brings in, like I said, a low-key exercise. So if it's being shaken up, you would think you'd get something more competitive or vigorous, but not the case. In any event, what else did I have to say? A grounding diet, dairy, more ethereal traits are concerned here, moderate to regular exercise. You know what was interesting too about this particular day is they were so specific with the health. That's not usual either. So this has been a pretty highly personalized day, all things told. So you can take that to the bank and feel special about that. They spent some time with you there. That having been said, that's been your health. It's pretty boilerplate in those respects. They didn't get too into the weeds with psychological or anything like that, but it's pretty interesting too that they didn't do that, I would say, because such a focus on the metaphysical, some folks might think that you're ruled by your illusions and you maybe need to set that aside for a time. But they didn't bring anything like that up, and that's something that they tend to do. They tend to go against the typical convention there, play the opposite, if you like. That didn't come up. So pretty interesting how boilerplate but personalized it was for you today. So that's it. That's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, lighten up a bit, they say. Don't take yourself so seriously. Admitting ignorance from time to time is liberating, and work out your problems without putting them on others. All right. What did I have to say about the advice? I would say it was pretty good stuff, but here's the thing. I was a bit confused with why they mentioned a lot of this for you. It didn't seem to line up with the breakdown. That said, let's see if I can kind of wax poetic as to why they said what they said. They said lighten up a bit and don't take yourself too seriously. And so I wrote, not sure where this comes from. Didn't get the impression that you were an overly serious individual. But maybe your dedication to fatalism and predictions are a bit too heavy-handed for other folks, all right? And it might be a little too integral to your life. So you might have to set that aside a little bit. Some people might also have a hard time taking you seriously if you're making predictions. So you might have to kind of ease up on that a little bit. What else do we have here? Admitting ignorance is liberating sometimes. I'd say this is a pretty novel inclusion, regardless of why they drill down on it. We don't have to put. We also don't have to put on a know-it-all attitude all the time. And we shouldn't either. All right. At least I would argue, because humility is admirable, at least in my book. That said, I didn't get the impression you were a know-it-all either, so it's interesting this pops up. But I could see that idea maybe being baked in to the bargain because of the fatalism. Well, I know everything because, I believe in fate. This is supposed to happen, that kind of thing. Regardless if there's any truth in it or not. So, any event, so I also said, work your problems without putting them on others, okay? And I said, I'm assuming this comes down to your self-fulfilling prophecies and thinking certain things about those close to you based on your illusions, if you like. Even though to you it might not be an illusion, more of a projection. But it's a bad look in a practice, I would say. You got to know your people, know your audience, who appreciates that, who doesn't, and where to avoid it if it applies. So, in any event, yeah, know your situation, know your audience. Let's say that's pretty important with as much. Some folks might not like to have their predictions made about you. I think you get it. In any event, that's been your advice, rather. Getting ahead of myself. Let's move on to your meditation. All right, it's your birthday. You get a little bit of a meditation, something to think about. The present periodically splits into various paths, each a potentially fruitful avenue of exploration. All right, a little bit more of a mouthful than the typical meditation, so certainly something to think about. One more time, the present periodically splits into various paths, each a potentially fruitful avenue of exploration. All right. Don't necessarily know what to make of that for you. Sometimes I have an idea, but you know what? I don't tend to tell folks about it. Why? Because it's your birthday, it's your meditation. I don't want to throw some kind of spin or interpretation on it and affect it for you one way or the other. That's just for you to figure out. It would kind of defeat the purpose, in my opinion. That said, that's in your meditation. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth and where you otherwise maybe a little more atrophied. All right. Your strengths, you're accepting, you're courageous, and you're evolving. But your weaknesses, what are your weaknesses here? You're overreaching. Well, we kind of got that with the predictions, and self-importance, apparently. All right. Oftentimes I like to make the case that our strengths will help us overcome our weaknesses if there's something that even need improved upon. But I also like to say that our weaknesses can be strengths. Just depends on the situation and the individual. So let's see if I can make a case for as much. All right. How can our strengths be used to overcome our weaknesses? You're accepting. I would say, hey, you know what? You're apt to understand or be perfectly willing to accept what the situation is. Some folks might find themselves in denial for a long time. They don't want to hear it. That's not a problem of mine. Yeah, it is, all right? So you're accepting of as much. That's huge, all right? The first step, I would say. You're courageous. Hey, you know what? You're apt to confront the challenges, all right? Some folks won't do it. Just no. They put it in the back there. I'm not going to think about it. You're evolving. Oh, that's huge. You know what? You're going to approach the problem. You're going to start addressing it, all right? And you're going to evolve from it. Sometimes, we just improve, or sometimes we just fix it, right? We don't evolve from it. There's another step to be had, evolving from it. That's huge, I would say, in those respects. But your weaknesses, all right, how can those be strengths? You're overreaching. Oh, bad look, I would say, all right? And also makes you look a little greedy, perhaps, all right? I don't think that's what they're trying to say. You're just maybe imposing yourself in ways you probably shouldn't. But that said, I would say it kind of shows a bit of a commitment to a cause. I think it can be a strength in those respects. Some people understand, hey, you know what, you're maybe taking a little more than you should, or you're trying to angle for something that you shouldn't. Well, hey, you know what, I'm just trying to show you that I want it, all right? Or that I'm trying to impose myself in a way to show that I've got a passion for as much. Again, I think it just depends on knowing the situation, when to do as much. Because sometimes folks don't know you want something. You're not imposing yourself enough, all right? So if you're overreaching, you're apt to not get mistaken in those regards. But again, just be mindful of how you use it. Also, self-important, they said. You make it seem like you're the person who knows all, sees all, the prognosticator or prognosticators. Again, kind of a bad look. People think, if they don't think you're crazy, well, then they think you're just you're too up in self-important, if you like. All right. Now, how can that be a strength? Well, you know what? Shows a certain kind of confidence. All right. And confidence isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, it depends on how much you're bringing to the table. All right. You might have to stymie a little bit of it. Save a little bit of it in reserve for folks who maybe need a little bit more of it. Whereas some folks don't want to hear any of it at all. So know your situation once again. Maybe the theme of the day for as much. All right. That said, I think you get the idea. That having been said, I also like to mention that it's probably advisable not to get rid of your weaknesses altogether if that's something that you want to improve upon. And I say that because they're part of who you are, all right? They make you who you are, so don't get rid of them lock, stock. That having been said, those are your strengths and your weaknesses. Kind of interesting, you only got 2 weaknesses. Typically, they give people 3. So, hey, you know what? Maybe there's not much to improve upon. Yeah, there you go. That said, let's move on to those born on this day. When we get into those born on this day, not only do we get to see who shares your company, which can be interesting to see what lottery we drew, but I like to use this as an opportunity to maybe drum up some inspiration to find out and chase after our passions. That's assuming you don't know what your passions are. And I say that because a lot of times I get out in the world and meet folks, ask them what they do, more importantly, if they like it, and oftentimes they don't. And I think it's because they don't have a purpose in life or a passion to strive after. Or sometimes we did that already and we need a new one, all right? So maybe this is the perfect opportunity for you to drum up some inspiration. Because I think, you know what? It's important that we have something that we're driving after day to day, jumping out of bed doing backflips to get after. And it also takes time, energy, and effort to start approaching as much. It's hard questions to ask sometimes. Sometimes we got to break out the pad and paper, actually put things down in writing and do some reductive math, if you like, with the concepts there. How can I make this work? You get it. So I just want to use this as an opportunity to make you think about doing the important work. If it's something you need to do. Otherwise, if you already got a passion figured out and it's lucrative for you, hey, the hat I'm not wearing, that's off to you. But hey, for everyone else, let's just put the bug in your ear about it and you get to see who shares your company. All right, here we go. We have Percival Lowell, 19th, 20th century astronomer, and predicted Pluto's discovery. It says March 13th is also the date of Uranus's discovery by Herschel in 1781. Interesting little tidbit. They don't normally do that. We also have L. Ron Hubbard, the Church of Scientology founder, writer of Dianetics, an engineer, philosopher, and a science fiction writer. We also have Walter H. Annenberg, a publisher of TV Guide and the Philadelphia Inquirer, an ambassador to Great Britain, a philanthropist, and founder of the Annenberg School of Communications. Not much prediction there with the TV Guide, though that is interesting there. What's fated to be on the television? All right, who else do we have here? Eugene A. Cernan, the U.S. astronaut and commander of Apollo 17 moon mission, and the second astronaut to walk in space, it says. Must have been a Gemini mission there. We also have Bruno First, the business writer, lawyer, and memory school founder. We also have Alexei von Janolinsky, a Russian early abstract painter. Madi El Mandra, a Moroccan university professor and responsible for China in the 21st century. We also have Karl Dietrich Bracher, a German political scientist, historian, and responsible for the German dictatorship. And we also have, it was probably a book, I'm assuming. We also have Janet Flanner, an American Parisian journalist. Roy Haynes, a versatile jazz drummer. Hugo Wolf, German song composer, a critic, and suffered insanity from syphilis. Oh, I think that happened to Nietzsche too, didn't it there? Interesting. We also have William Casey, CIA director, Fritz Busch, a German violinist, a pianist, and a conductor. And we also have Terence Blanchard, a jazz trumpeter, Blue Mitchell, a jazz trumpeter, Neil Sedaka, singer-songwriter, Dick Katz, co-founder of Milestone Records, and a jazz pianist and an arranger. A lot of musicians today. Let's see if we can keep up with the trend there. Here we go. Sammy K, a band leader. It says Swing and Sway with Cammy K. Cami K, rather. We also have William Bolger, U.S. Postmaster General. He might have played an instrument too. Who's to say? It's good. It's a good probability, right? I'm sorry, I'm doing a little too much prognosticating. And we have finally Tessie O'Shea, a British entertainer, and it says 2-ton Tessie. I'm assuming that's probably a nickname. That having been said, I know it's a big-ass, tall order to try to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments. But hey, if there's anything we can do to just put the bug in the ear to start drilling down on figuring out such things, hey, you know what? I think it's well worth the effort. All right? That having been said, I'm sure I butchered a name or two in there, so let's make up for it on my side of things. Not done in malice, just hooked on phonics. Doesn't often work for me with the names there. But that having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading. Except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Pisces, of the Pisces III period specifically, and your quality and element is mutable water. All right, and this has been March 13th, the day of a fateful prediction from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Hugh Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I like to put together for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents there. So check out the message if you're interested. Check out the link if you're interested in picking up the book and supporting the channel in the bargain, which I appreciate. Hey, this thing makes an excellent coffee table book. I brought it into my life just visiting his company. They read my birthday to me. I didn't think it matched up at all. They told me they thought it totally did. They explained their case and they won me over. I was just too fixated on the concept and what it meant, and I didn't think out much past it. That having been said, whether it speaks to you or not, this thing might help you break the ice if you ever have company over and you have difficulty with that, or maybe you're just tired of doing the lion's share of the lifting. Well, let this behemoth of a book do that for you, all right? That said, book having been relayed, not altogether all too important. What is important, like I said at the top, wishing you a happy birthday, all right? So happy birthday once again. And for everybody else who joined us randomly, hey, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, took something of value, even though it wasn't your birthday. Sometimes it can be interesting just to hear other folks' tales of woe or prediction, whatever the case may happen to be. But that said, I hope to see you over on your birthday reading. Now, before I take us out, lest I forget, that's right, your daily numbers. Let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Let it take the wheel and drive and show you what it has to show you, all right? It's just an exercise, folks. But if there's anything I wish for you on your birthday, in addition to figuring out your passions, it's that you're stacking up some coincidences, seeing, tasting, and touching, maybe intuiting a little bit of the magic that the universe has in store for you, all right? And like I said, at the very least, you're getting in your daily steps there. And you know what? For someone who just needs the light to exercise, perfect, all right? So in any event, I just want to thank you for the pleasure of your time and tell you that it was a privilege to celebrate your birthday with you, all right? So get out there, enjoy yourselves, have a happy birthday, and take care of those feet and toes. That's right. Take mind of where you place your furniture. You don't want to be losing no nails, all right? So take care of yourself.